Welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off.
What's up, everyone? Jon here at the Dropship Podcast, and today I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Jon Murphy. Jon, how are you, sir?
Hey, Jon. Great to be here. Thanks for reaching out.
No problems, man. A lot of listeners will be familiar with Jon's name. He's been around high-ticket dropshipping for a long time, and in fact, he was one of our very first guests on the Dropship Podcast, and I looked before. It was way back at episode 34. So I think this episode is 249. So we've had a bit of water under the bridge since then. So it's pretty awesome to get you back on here. And to get you back on here, I think it's been a while since we've had somebody on the show who's been in the game for a while. So Jon, I'll do the brief history as I understand it. If you want to know a bit more about Jon's early story, I think you can go back to episode 34 and listen in there. Certainly a good episode to go and catch up on. But Jon started his first high-ticket dropshipping business in 2017 in, I think, one of the most competitive high-ticket dropshipping niches I've ever seen. Certainly, I think it still probably holds that cake. And despite, unlike many people in that niche, he made it work, ran the same business. I think Jon also has the cake for the longest ever Google Merchant Center suspension that I've heard of, quite possibly. So for all of you out there who are struggling with that right now, you're looking or listening to living proof that you can be successful despite that. And he went on to cross the $10 million mark, I believe, this year on that business. And in exciting news, I think Jon is actually selling that business today, which is a very massive coincidence. So congratulations, Jon, on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jon. Today I'm signing the papers, and then it's going to be for somebody else to grow up onwards.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. So there's so much in there. But while I was just saying all of that, I thought I kind of want to go back, actually, because we get a lot of people at the moment. I want to go back to that whole Google suspension stuff. I want to take you back. I mean, this is going back to when it first happened, like quite a few years now. But I want to go back there because we have a lot of people, I think, who are struggling with that a little bit at the moment. You know, they kind of go to start running ads and, maybe they do for a little bit of time and then they get a merchant center suspension and all of that sort of thing. And I think when you're earlier in your journey, that feels like a really big blow, right? You're kind of locked out of the first way that you thought you were going to, make some sales and grow your business. And it's very frustrating the way Google does it at the moment. And certainly I think the reason that it happened to you is a little bit different to what people get stuck with at the moment. I think yours was even wackier than what a lot of people hear today, if my memory serves me correct. But I just wanted to kind of go back to what was your thinking at that point in time? Like when that happened to you, I think you'd been up and running for a little bit of time, hadn't you, when that happened?
Yeah. That's the shame because right now I notice everybody seems to Google seems to default to a suspension. It's like guilty until proven innocent. Yeah. So I think it's probably just because of the popularity now. So people are, I think Google defaults it so it's manageable and riffraff doesn't slip through the net, which is understandable. In my case, it was a little bit different because, as you said, I was in the very competitive e-bike space. Because I haven't signed the papers yet, but the very, very ridiculously competitive niche. And built the store between April and July 2017. And, usually the quickest way to validation is to your first sale is by running Google Shopping ads. So that's what everybody does. And the reason I got suspended is because, which isn't the case now, just from a couple of months ago, Google has changed their opinion, but e-bikes were considered vehicles, and vehicles are a violation of Google shopping policies. And I didn't know this because all of my competitors were all running ads, and I was running ads too. but the verification is kind of like a random spot check. A robot will come in, bot will crawl your ads, and then if you tick any of those boxes that's a violation, you're gone. So I couldn't even say it wasn't really misrepresentation, which seems to be the word of the day for most of them now. But it was literally like, you're selling e-bikes and it's a violation, so you're not allowed back in. And that happened in early 2019. So I'd gone a full calendar year, all 2018, where I was profitable. The store was growing, getting momentum, and I was like, okay, I think I might actually be able to quit my job, my job in GE, and then finally do this thing full time. And I was right around the thing where I think I can replace my income, and then overnight all my traffic went away, and it was a cold shower, because lots of things were going through my mind, because it happened on a Friday, and I remember just sitting on the sofa, not talking for like the whole weekend, because I was thinking, what does this mean? Does this mean that, like, at this stage I resented the day job because I was over it and I just hadn't given my notice, and now I was thinking, does this mean I have to continue going to work forever? Is the business over? Is this it? So it was. It was a long weekend. I just sitting by myself trying to figure out what to do next, and I didn't have an answer. It was it was a dark time, because I didn't have I didn't know there were other ways to get traffic, because I hadn't taken the course that you've built now. It was before then, so I didn't really have anywhere to turn. So it was lots of self-reflection.
Cool. And do you remember kind of like either, like, what was the path out of that? Either mentally or just like, I think a lot of people who know your story will know that.
Well, I got to a point where I was thinking,
stuff,
okay, I can't pay for traffic. I have to get it elsewhere. And then I just kind of went on that kind of exploration of, how do I get traffic? I spoke to our mutual friend, Corey Eckert, who was, at the time, knew a lot more about SEO. And I was like, I want to pick your brain. I got some coaching from you. I think I got like 5 hours in the space of like 2 weeks, because I needed answers and I needed help. And I ended up, one of the things I did, and it took a long time. It wasn't like by the weekend I had a plan, but I started hanging out in, like, what I noticed was I was looking at the Google search results for like e-bikes and, best this or most affordable that, all the type of content that was showing up. And I knew I couldn't run ads, but what I found was there were affiliate marketers showing up all over page one. And as I started to like figure out what they were doing, I started thinking, like, these guys, their whole business model is like, it's get organic traffic by ranking on page one, or you have a blog, like an unpaid blog hobby. You don't get paid if you don't get clicks. So these guys had figured it out, right? So I figured I would start hanging out in like Facebook groups, like Niche Pursuits by Spencer Hawes. Doug Cunningham is another one of these, like affiliate marketers who they have a podcast. I'd listen to all their podcasts. I'd be in their Facebook groups, and I was just kind of lurking, just kind of hanging out, seeing what are they doing. And I just tried to, apply that to e-commerce. Instead of linking to an Amazon page, I just linked to my product pages. And then I kind of, refined the process over time. But that was kind of how I kind of deconstructed what other people were doing. And I said, well, like, maybe I can borrow from here and borrow from there, and just kind of, figured it out.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool to hear that. I know certainly that was, back when I started out too, a lot of the information relating to high ticket dropshipping was kind of fairly sparse back then. There was some stuff around about some things, but you kind of had to guess a lot of it. And that was certainly an approach I took early on as well, was kind of looking at what other people were doing with other online businesses that there was maybe more information about because they'd been around for a bit longer, and sort of going, I think if I took that and tweaked it this way, it would kind of work for high ticket drop shipping. Stuff with paid ads was like that for me as well. And a few other things, everything I learned about copywriting and email marketing didn't even come from e-commerce. It was all from, other types of online businesses, like people selling information products and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's really cool to hear that that's how you went about it. Because I think back when we first started, like there was a lot less e-commerce information out there, and you kind of a lot of the time had to be a bit more creative to find solutions, I think, than maybe you need to be these days. So that's really cool.
Yeah. No, it would have been a lot easier if your course was available back then. It would have been a lot easier because I would have just skipped to the relevant module and got my answers there. But no, back then we had to be a little bit. We had to just push through and like try to find the gems amongst all of the internet crap, that's out there. So lots of internet searches.
Yeah, cool. So you're pretty big on SEO, and I think that's obviously something that's carried you through sort of to this day, and has resulted in what sounds like a pretty good outcome in terms of selling that business. I know you're also quite something I remember a bit that it would be cool to hear you talk a little bit about as well. I think there's been some other things you did along the way that were probably a little bit different to what a lot of people do. So sort of some of the way that you're able to build relationships in your niche and kind of interact with your ideal, like your target customer. Once again, I think your site has a very specific target customer who is not you. And so a lot of people kind of, I think, hesitate from that. So, Jon sells products to hunters. Jon, I'm assuming you're still not a hunter, but,
still not a hunter.
A lot of people kind of shy away, I think, from selling to people that they don't like readily associate with. And I think that very much often narrows the field because a lot of people like me, for example, aren't really following an interest that needs higher ticket products, right? And so like I've never literally run a store in a niche that I'm personally the customer for, like never. I know Ben's different to me. He usually is the customer that he builds businesses around. But you're, in this case, at least probably a bit more like me. And I'm kind of wondering if you had some thoughts on like how you went about, because one of the things that stands out to me about your business is that you got very good at, putting things on, designing your website, communicating with your customer in ways that nobody else was and ways that they needed to hear that probably resonated with them. And yet you're not your ideal customer. So how did you kind of how did you go, like, how did that just play out for you? Because I think that's something that, once again, I don't think I've seen many people do it better than you in the high ticket dropshipping space. And I think a lot of people are missing this bit and it's really important.
Yeah. Well, it was, apart from SEO, it was like probably the best thing I could have done to grow the business and make it what it became. And it was also like that was also an exploration of sorts, because in the beginning I was selling every type of e-bike to every type of person in the US. And what I found was people that are buying the most affordable e-bike there is, it's all that they can afford. So for them, it's a fortune. But for me, they're buying the basic, like the cheapest product in the cheapest type of e-bike there is. And those are the ones that have like the most problems, which create the biggest amount of customer service headaches, lots of unhappy customers. And back then it was all on me. I was the one answering the phone. I was the one, and I'm in a different time zone in Italy. I was up at midnight talking some old lady off the ledge, and not to report the store for whatever it is. And then I had a smaller portion of my store where I had like two brands that were built by, like the brands were hunters who made e-bikes for hunting. And it was a very small kind of discrete corner of the market. But what I noticed was they made really, really high-end products that cost a lot more. and there were very few issues with them because they were using really good components. And the demographic they're willing to pay, hunters are willing to spend high dollars for the best equipment because they can't afford for it to fail them 10 miles from the road, right? So I noticed that if I could get more of those customers and less of the other people, I could manage the customer service a lot better. I could get I only needed less sales because I wasn't running ads. So my traffic needed to be, if I'm getting like 500 people a day organically, like I need to be making a sale. If I wanted to make like 4 or 5 sales a day because I'm selling cheaper stuff, I would have to allow like an exponential amount of traffic, and it wasn't really viable. So I started looking at, what if I only sell to hunters? So I decided to just pick a demographic and then just go all in on that one demographic. And the hunting niche just made sense because of the price point, the margins, and the more manageable situation with customer service and the number of orders a month I would need to do. And then the journey went from me kind of changing the imagery on the website. And what I found was, the more I was polarizing on my website, the more I repelled the people I didn't want to sell bikes to, and the more I attracted hunters. Because yes, everybody, like, there's, I don't know, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I remember looking, there were like 250 competitors of mine on selling high ticket dropshipping e-bike sites, and it just keeps increasing, right? Lots of cheap factories out of China are selling cheap e-bikes, and I'm sure there's more than that. It's probably in like close to 500 now. But these, like, what I found was, if I was just selling those e-bikes just to hunters, and if hunters were shopping around and we're all selling the same bikes, the same imagery, same components, similar product descriptions, well, I mean, like the core specs were the same, but I was the one relating to them about how this was going to be a game changer on their next hunting trip, and then going into details about how and why. Hunters understood that I understood their needs and their problems better than everybody else did. So they came to me. So, and then over time, the site just became more and more hunter specific, like the imagery, the videos. I just went deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more I did that, the more hunters just looked at me as the guy that really understands what they're looking for. Instead of just being that every person, like the everything store for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think one other thing I found, that like when you're only talking to one person, it's so much easier, because like when I was, like, if I'm listing out the benefits of getting an e-bike, I don't have to talk about reducing traffic or carbon footprint, or it's easier to get to the store with your groceries, or a tricycle will help you if you have like stability issues after a certain age, or you had knee replacement, or you're an outdoorsman, and because those are all different messages. They're like there's 50 different. Those are different demographics. But when all I'm talking about is the benefits for using an e-bike for hunting, I can be really, really specific, and the message is received on a much deeper level, and it just makes it easier.
Yeah, awesome. And so just going back to like making your site more and more about, that ideal customer, that target customer, what were some of the things you did to become more familiar with what they needed to hear about the products and all of that sort of things, as somebody who is not probably your ideal customer? So you didn't start with a deep understanding of that ideal customer's needs and wants and desires and all of problems and all of that sort of thing that you're looking to solve. What were some of the things you did? Because I think this is the part where people get a bit worried about taking this sort of approach. They don't know. They imagine that they're like, oh, well, I don't know anything about it. Who am I to talk about it? Sort of thing. There's that real sort of self-doubt and I guess kind of imposter syndrome that sets in for a lot of people, and probably holds them back from taking this sort of approach. How did
Well,
that
I've
play
had
out for you?
imposter syndrome the whole time.
We
Well,
all do.
the difference is you just have to embrace it a little bit. You just have to, like, because when I launched my store, it was mid 2017, and the first time I ever sat on an e-bike was probably 2021, 2020 maybe. I
Nice.
didn't.
Yeah.
Not only did I not own an e-bike, I'd never even ridden an e-bike. So I was already talking about e-bikes and why they were great and how they were going, because I was a kind of like a baptism by fire. You figure it out. But specifically with hunters, I was the one on the phone with them. They would talk to me and they would say, the reason I'm calling you is because all of these bikes look the same, but here's what I needed to do. And then, oh, that's interesting. Or people would always ask me questions like, um, how deep into the woods can I go before the battery runs out? So that for that translate is like, what's the range on the e-bike battery, or how waterproof is the motor? Because I may have to like cut through like a small stream halfway through, halfway across the field or whatever. So these were all things, and the more and more I spoke to them, I started getting the same questions over and over and over. So while it made customer service easier for me because now I knew the answers to those questions because I'd then gone and figured it out, I just said, well, I should be putting this on my product descriptions. I should be putting this in blog content, in my FAQ pages. These are all things that, like, not because I don't want to answer them on the phone. I could, but if I can make the answers easier, because if one person asks me on the phone, maybe 15 people had the same question, but they didn't call me. So if the information is on the website, maybe even on the product page, I'm answering those questions while people are still on the website. So I got used to what hunters needed because they told me, and because I was the one answering the phone at the time. So I was exposed at the time. And in the beginning, I didn't have the answers, but I would just say, that's a really good question. Let me just check. And I might make up something like, there have been so many changes with this new line. I just want to get the information before I tell you something that's not quite right. I'll call you back in an hour, or I'll call you back tomorrow morning or something like that. So in the beginning, I got the information and then answered the questions later. And then eventually I had such a deep knowledge of what hunters need in an e-bike, depending on where they go and what type of terrain they use. I didn't have to then, I didn't have to go like look at the manual or do anything like that. So there's a bit of a learning curve, but if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been able to communicate with my people. So,
Yep.
and also one other thing that I do sometimes forget that I did in the early days, but it was very important. I joined a bunch of hunting forums, like in like old school forums, and I wouldn't go in and pretend I was a hunter riding an e-bike and telling people how great it was. I came in, hands up, white flag raising, saying, I sell e-bikes to hunters. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. And then I'd get abuse off some hunters because it was unnatural and crap like that. And then there were other people that were just genuinely curious. And then I became like a staple in the forums, and I was the guy to get e-bikes from the people in the forum. So I became like a reputable character without pretending to be a hunter or anybody that I wasn't. So I got a lot of information just from the back and forths in the hunters. It was because it's also among hunters, it's a polarizing topic because people love it and people hate it because now the weekend warriors are going to be able to reach my spot that I walk into. And it takes me all day. That kind of back and forth, which is great for conversation. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I think, putting yourself out there like that, building relationships, and also building a bit of word of mouth as well. Like, word of mouth is like one of the biggest marketing channels there is. It takes a bit of time and effort to generate it for sure, but once it starts going and it starts working, it's pretty unstoppable. And it's, once again, it's not something that you have to pay for every visit, for every click. It's one of those organic. It's an organic strategy, and so I think that's really cool. And once again, I mean, those opportunities still exist today, and very few people take their relationship with their customers to that level. And I think, once again, for a lot of people, that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think there's a lot of people out there who have the opportunity. They're in a market where, one of those sort of passion or hobby based kind of markets where they have the opportunity to be doing that sort of thing. And so, if you think that's you, I'd strongly be, you're listening in, I'd strongly be recommending that you're out there doing something similar to what Jon's talking about with your ideal customers, because it's such in many niches, it's just such an empty playing field. There's such a huge opportunity there just to get to know your customers even quicker, to, get your name out there, to build relationships. It's fantastic. It's awesome. Cool, man. Well, I want to take you forward then. Obviously, we mentioned at the top of the show that you've just sold that business. Like, you're literally signed the papers, which is a big deal. It's your baby. You've signed it. How did you end up there? Why did you decide to sell now? What was the thinking? What was your thinking?
Yeah, it was a kind of, it's like one of those, I don't know, it was kind of like a drop, like that drip torture thing. Like it got in my head, that idea, the exit, and because sometimes I still have imposter syndrome, and I think, like, I'm only a success after I've sold the business, because if I end up blowing up the store and then it goes to zero, was I a success, or was I just doing well for a little bit? So I feel like the exit kind of like, validates me in a way, and I'm kind of needy that way. So, but it actually spawned from, I get almost daily emails from VC companies that are like, collecting websites. Basically, they're just like going around buying up all the e-commerce stores and to add it to their portfolio and stuff. And I used to get, although I get those emails all the time, and I've always ignored them. And then one of my suppliers came to me and said, would you ever consider selling the store? And then you could we'll buy it from you. We'll take up all of the profits, and then we'll just pay you as like a third party agent to run the store for us. And I was like, so I could continue getting a salary, but I get the exit. And I was like, that sounds great. And then I like the idea, because like the supplier I worked with, like, we're basically like family now. So it would have been a really nice way to, for the store to evolve. But then about a year ago, 18 months ago, after COVID, it was like the post-COVID slump after everything. We all thought like the COVID was like the all of those inflated sales. It was like the new normal. And then it was like, it didn't last very long. A year later, and then everything kind of just went back to normal. And then they were like, ooh, maybe, because they're obviously in the same niche as me. So their sales were down as well. And then they realized, well, their accountant recommended that they didn't stretch their means too far and then try to do too many things. And they were like, actually, maybe it's not the best time. So I was like, okay, cool. But by then I decided an exit would be cool. And then I figured, I'm not a hunter. I don't like e-bikes. I've had the store for a while. It would be nice to put some money in the bank and then start again. And just do it without the stress of, I have to be profitable this month or else kind of scenario. I think it'll just be, the safety is there. The financial security is going to be there this time. And I can afford to do it a little bit quicker this time. Maybe I won't do it all myself this time around either.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. It is definitely, I think it is definitely one of the things that when you get to a level where you could sell a store for a decent amount of money, and that, I think you're right, you do kind of get that seed in your head, and it's really hard to get it out of there once it's in there, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like you've got to scratch that itch. I think, I think most entrepreneurs, it's like, I'm kind of usually these days I'm more of a fan of people holding on to businesses and continuing to grow them, because I think a lot of people sell before they reach their full potential in a lot of markets, and there would actually be financially better off to hold it for a bit longer. But at the same time, I think it's just one of those cool entrepreneurial experiences that you should experience at least once, in your time, like taking the exit, seeing that big chunk of cash and losing part of it to tax and all of that sort of thing. I I think it's a really cool life experience, man. So I hope you take a minute to enjoy it as it's happening for sure. I want to talk to you about the process, but one of the things that stood out to me when we were talking was you mentioned the multiple you were getting on the sale, which was, I thought, really high. So what did you end up with there? And why? I just want the world to hear this.
Yeah, so it worked out at about 40x, which is, I've never heard anybody getting 40x, but it's a very good multiple, and it's for two reasons. One is that it's an SEO machine. Like, the new buyer could come in and do nothing, and it will just continue to generate income, and that's kind of what this buyer is looking at. But it was also a very there's still so many levers to pull on the store. Like, somebody can come in, set up ads, and then start running ads, because now you can actually run ads for e-bikes. They're no longer classed as vehicles, which is good. So somebody can come in and actually improve on what it is. So somebody with the right skills can pull all those levers. So it's tempting for a buyer because there's opportunity still to do stuff. It doesn't look like it's explored and pulled every lever possible, because then for a buyer, it would look like it's kind of hit its full potential, which it hasn't. But the real core key factor is the fact that the SEO organic traffic is just, it's there. Like, the first pieces of content I wrote in like February 2019 after my first suspension, that's still top of page one of Google for like my core keywords, still generating sales, every day of the week.
Nice.
So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's easy for somebody to come in, because they also have to have the skills, but it's, there's a lot of value there. That's, somebody wouldn't be able to come in and then recreate what I've done in SEO with that store. Or at least not in the foreseeable future. It would take years to do. No. So that's where the value is. I'm not running ads. I don't have Facebook retarget. I don't even have Facebook retargeting set up on that store. Like, nothing, So I used to, but like, I haven't done that for a very long time. So because I got banned from Facebook as well in the same week as Google Shopping. So they're all picking on me. So so the multiple is definitely for I think for the two reasons we talked about. It's the SEO network that I've built, and the fact that it's so specific to hunters. It's really easy to understand who the core demographic is, and the buyer is a hunter, so he might actually be able to do a better job than I did relating to these people. So,
yeah, no, I think it's an awesome story, and I wanted to get that there once again. I think for anybody listening who might have any doubts about the value and power of implementing a good SEO strategy for your high ticket dropshipping business, this is like another dimension to that. Like, not only are you going to get an increase in traffic and sales that you're not going to be paying for every click for and all of that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if you do get to the point where you want to sell your business, you are just going to get a higher multiple if you have a business that has good SEO in place, is generating organic traffic, than one that can just run ads, right? I mean, great organic traffic is going to be attractive to almost any website buyer. Far more attractive than, once again, just a website that runs on paid traffic, which can disappear in a day, which anybody can just walk into that space and run ads. So you're less protected for competition. Whereas if you spend a few years, growing your business, making money from it, but also building a really good SEO platform, and you start that as early as possible, you end up in a position that is much more defensible from competition. Somebody can't just walk in and do exactly what Jon's done. So if anybody's listening here going, oh, well, he's selling that, I'm going to try and jump into the hunter's e-bike niche. Like, it's going to take you quite some time to take over the site that Jon's built. And, as a business owner, that's something you should always be focused on is building, that moat around your business so that, you're not as susceptible to competition, And John did that in a very competitive market.
And one other thing I did to reinforce that moat, we think of it like filling the water and around the edge of the moat, but because like Google doesn't generally give, like, no matter how good I am at SEO, Google won't give me all 10 spots on page 1 of Google, because they want to make sure people get what they're looking for. So you can't monopolize the page directly. But what I did early, and it's been growing ever since, was that, well, like I said in the beginning, where I found like those affiliate marketers were ranking on page 1, because I was ranking in page 1 now as well. They've not only was I trying to mirror them, they became my competition, because I wasn't competing for shopping ads. I was competing for rankings. So I recruited them all as my affiliates. I launched a very simple affiliate marketing program on my store. I recruited as many as were willing, and what happened was that I would rank maybe like 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 in the rankings, and then like 2 or 3 of the other spots were my affiliates sending traffic to me. So if somebody was to look for like the best electric bike for hunting, they'd find me a couple of times, and then they'd find maybe 3 of my affiliates. So then I would basically own like 50% of the real estate on page 1. So I was pushing out my competitors because they just couldn't get on page 1. So then they were even more reliant on Google shopping ads. So there are lots of ways to build a moat around the business that doesn't require money. You know, that you don't have to pay to play. Obviously, running ads is a really, really important part of it, and you should be doing that too. But SEO, like organic traffic, getting traffic from forums and affiliate marketers and everything, just do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, another thing that you've mentioned that you've done that's led to success that is currently very much underutilized in the high ticket dropshipping space, working with affiliates and affiliate marketers, or just people with an audience of your target customer who could promote products who don't currently promote their own products. I think I would assume most of those you reached out to were probably promoting stuff via Amazon previously.
Yeah, they were either linking to Amazon or they were linking to the brands themselves through one of those larger affiliate program networks like AvantLink or something like that, where those brands are signed up and then people just pull the link. The commissions were more or less the same anyway, so I was just basically my pitch was something along the lines of, I'm already ranking at the top of page 1, so I'm probably going to get the click before you do. But the items are so expensive, people will read my content and then go look at maybe position 2 or position 3 for a second opinion, and then come back to me. But if you were the second opinion, you'd get the commission every time, because they would come to me, go to you for validation, end up back on my website, and you got paid just because we were both ranking. So it was kind of like, let's work together and we all make money. So it was an easy conversation most of the time.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I love that mindset of it's kind of like an abundance type approach, which is really, really cool. All right, man. Well, selling your business, you mentioned your plan at this point is to dive back in afresh in the dropshipping world, which I'll be very much looking forward to hearing how that goes for you and what your experience is like after running a single business for quite a few years, what it's like to go back to scratch again. And maybe we'll have to get you on again in 6 months' time or something to talk through what that's been like for you. I'd certainly like to continue this story on the show, of course. But and another thing we've got going on at the moment, of course, is that you've joined the team over here at Dropship Breakthru as one of our coaches. Which I'm certainly super excited about, to have your expertise on the team. So what was the motivation there? I'm sure people have been hassling you for coaching for years.
For a few years now. I still get like daily Facebook messages from people I don't know, and sometimes. Well, now I don't reply to those anymore because it takes up so much of my time. And I have dabbled in the past in coaching. But again, that imposter syndrome was always there. So I really never like took it on full time or ran with it, because I always felt like, what if the advice I gave one person works and then it doesn't work on the other person? They might think, I don't know. It was one of those imposter syndrome conversations I would have regularly in my head. But I think because I've been part of your group and the whole community for so long, it just feels easier. It feels like it kind of makes sense, because people know who I am. They know, most of them know like my experiences and stuff. So I feel like I don't need to come in here and prove my worth. I can just get down with, just helping them get through whatever obstacle it is on the day. So it feels easy, or feels like a bit more natural doing it this way. So I'm happy to be a coach now for Dropship Breakthru. I've already had 2 calls, which went really well. And I look forward to the next few as well, especially now, because soon I'm going to have even more time. Not that I spent much time running the e-bike store anymore, but I'm going to have more time now to do that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome, dude. That's it's something I'm really excited about. I mean, I think you have a very some really great experiences on particularly like some of the things you've mentioned on the show here. Some some of the experiences in the growth side, like growing a business and doing all that sort of thing that not a lot of people have out there, and particularly not in the high ticket dropshipping space. So, if you're listening in and this conversation has sort of piqued your interest into some of the things that Jon's been talking about organic traffic, about building relationships within his niche, about interacting with, his ideal customer, about even the fact of just how he went about setting his business up to focus on an ideal customer, about things like affiliate marketing. If you're in the Dropship Breakthru program, you can get one-to-one time with Jon to, sit down with him and talk through how that stuff might look like in your business, and have him share some of his ideas about these sort of things and how you might be able to do them. So you've got to be a member. You get into the program if you're not already in. When you're in there, you'll have the opportunity to add on some one-to-one time, and you can book in calls with Jon whenever you like. So, Jon, man, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. Like I said, I'm super excited. I think I'd love to have you back again, because I want to see where your journey goes here now. Certainly, it's your story is one of my favorite high ticket dropshipping stories by far from the last 5 or 6 years. So, man, congratulations on the sale and best of luck with what comes next.
Yeah, thanks, Jon. It was great chatting, and my story doesn't finish now. It's just I'm going to move on to the next chapter. 2014, we'll have some interesting developments, I'm sure. I don't know what they are yet, but I'm not done yet. I'm just moving on. So watch this space.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthru, where Jon and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthru will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthru.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.